The reforms came piggybacking on the pandemic.
So infrastructure is in shortage, right? Even if you want to do something.
Government's mandate is to encourage the sector, encourage the startups. That means they cannot cost it as much as they want.
Hello everyone, you're with Business Insider. I'm Sriram Iyer and this is our special series Budget Insider. Today we're talking about space, the thing you read up about after watching Interstellar, and that cool place where Elon Musk keeps sending rockets to, or when the Indian Space Research Organization sent up the Chandrayaan. All this stuff is not just cool anymore. It's not something that you wake up to every time there is a Christopher Nolan movie. It's not just cool, it's important. It's an important part of any country's strategy on how it wants to progress on technology, defense, cybersecurity, and many such areas. And these things need money, a lot of money, which right now is mostly coming from the government of India. And that is why we're discussing India's space budget. And to give you the answers to the many questions that I have and you may have, we have with us Dr. Chaitanya Giri, an expert in space and ocean studies at Gateway House, which is a think tank, and Pawan Kumar Chandana, the co-founder and CEO of Skyroot Aerospace. Pawan's startup, Skyroot, recently announced that it has successfully tested India's first privately designed and developed rocket engine. And it's likely to be a reality this year itself in 2021. So let's get to the conversation on India's space budget. The government promised to spend about 13,000 crore on space-related initiatives last year in the budget. Nirmala Sitharaman said that. The Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. It's a mouthful. In short, it's called InSpace, and that was going to be formed, and that was seen as a big commitment towards allowing private players into the sector, which is currently dominated by the government. What has been the progress so far, and is there anything to take heart from? Let's start with you, Chaitanya.
Yep. Hi Sriram. Hi Pawan.
Hey.
Hi.
So yeah, what has been the progress so far? And is it exciting? Is it slow? How would you describe it?
As you see, the reforms came piggybacking on the pandemic. So it was the pandemic that took us to make these very pertinent reforms. As far as I know, the government has been intending to bring in these reforms since the past 2 or 3 years right now. And I've been privy to that. But they were waiting for an occasion of some sort, an occasion that would really stir up the entire space community in India to go ballistic in terms of reforms and make these reforms work in such a manner that the space startups who had started showing up, flaunting up their technologies, get the necessary clearances, get the necessary funding, they get the necessary perception boost. And this is something that has happened in the past 6-7 months now. And
but InSpace is yet to be born.
Kind of.
So why is it taking time? How long could it possibly take?
This 2020-2021 calendar year has been very challenging because of COVID. And there are many sectors of Indian economy that are asking for financial relief. Some of them have grown really sick, and the government is now wanting to really make sure that in this upcoming budget, the 2021 budget, the sectors that are asking for relief are taken care of first, particularly travel, transportation, hospitality, education. These have had a tremendous impact on them. And in that scenario, I don't think the government would want to go for any flashy or fancy or funky, outlandish, allocations.
Use the word outlandish, which we use all the time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Pawan, let me come to you. InSpace is yet to be born, but NCIL is already there. For the sake of our viewers, let's break it down. These are organizations that were set up that are to be set up by the government of India, which will act as a nodal agency for space related initiatives from the private sector. So far all the work that ISRO does, like sending satellites, sending rockets, all of those things, SSLV, PSLV, all those jargon that you hear, when they do that, so right now ISRO is doing it. Eventually, the private sector wants to do it, and this IN-SPACe becomes the central authorizing agency. It will say, okay, fine, you are allowed to do this, you are good enough to do this, you have the technology, you have the ability, go ahead and do it. Now, that organization was promised to be set up this year, but it hasn't been yet, like Chaitanya explained, partly because of the COVID-related economic stress, cash crunch, and all of those things. But Pawan, you believe that 2021 will be the watershed year in India's space progress. Maybe we won't have a SpaceX of our own, but we will definitely create a ground for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, IN-SPACe was supposed to be formed by the end of last year, by December 2020. So slightly it's getting extended, but I think in the next 2 months, I'm pretty sure it will be, completely established. But notwithstanding that, basically, I think ISRO chairman has been kind enough to form a committee, it's called IN-SPACe committee. So which takes care of all authorizations before IN-SPACe is formed itself, So in fact, like Skyroot is one of the biggest beneficiaries for the upcoming IN-SPACe center. So we have been like in regular touch with the government, regular touch with the Department of Space. So all our requests are being taken up, positively even before IN-SPACe is being formed. So that is thanks to the chairman ISRO. So it's taken really active steps in forming a committee which takes decisions until IN-SPACe is formed. So nothing is stopped until that. And we are pretty sure that in the next 2 months, IN-SPACe will be completely formed. It will have its own director, so it'll be fully equipped with all powers and complete documentation of what it should do, what it should not do, so etc. So, but it's very positively going as of now, and I mean, from what I've seen, it is going pretty fast. So setting up a center like IN-SPACe with several directorates within short span of few months is like not easy, and ISRO is doing it really well as of now. Yeah. So we can't hear you, Sriram.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I was saying that authorization is only one part of it, right? Getting permissions from ISRO, or IN-SPACe for that matter, is just the first leg of it. The idea is we need, ISRO has all of 3 launch pads. I think 2 and the third one is under construction. Correct me if I'm wrong. So infrastructure is in shortage, right? Even if you want to do something, there isn't enough space to do it. Ironically, so that is one, and of course, the second issue that I'm told, and you guys can chip in and tell me if I'm wrong or right, or if there is a nuance to it, which is essentially the user fees, right? If you want to use ISRO's facilities, then what is it that you have to pay ISRO for it, right? And that is, when it comes to exchanging money, it's always a tricky question with the Indian government. The government's greed is endless, and the private sector's negotiating ability is endless, right? Like we have seen in space, like spaces like telecom, and all the other. Every time there is a license fee issue, there's an endless table tennis match that goes on. So what is the Pawan? What is it? What according to you will be the trickiest to resolve?
Yeah. So in fact, like always, when it comes to finance, every rupee counts in the government. You need to count every rupee, as we all know. So that's the reason why, in fact, what slows down government's work is mainly because of the finances. So the same thing, even it will be a great challenge to solve even for IN-SPACe as well. If someone wants to utilize the test facilities, they'll need to charge it, and if you charge it, you need to explain why you're charging it, so and so, etc. And also, the government's mandate is to encourage the sector, encourage the startups. That means they cannot cost it as much as they want, right? So this is a little bit challenging for them also to solve. So in fact, like they're working out a standardized procedure on how to cost things, and also like we're also openly negotiating with them on whatever prices they're giving, we want to reduce even further. So that way, like conversations are going on. Being the first time, it will take some time to sort things out.
What is that sometime, Pawan? How long do you expect?
No, it'll be within months only. So nothing will go. See, I'll tell you why. Because, for example, we have like a good number of tests lined up in the next quarter.
Okay.
Right? So you cannot delay by even weeks. If they delay by weeks, we are already delayed.
I think so. I may not understand space as much as you do, and definitely not as much as you do. But I definitely understand a little bit of finance,
Yeah.
and I know these delays are quite costly.
Yeah.
And it didn't hurt ISRO in the years in the past, but this might be a little tricky. We'll get to that point in just a bit. Chaitanya, I want to come to you with the same user fees conundrum. What is your research showing on what the government's approach has been, and what is the gap between the cup and the lip?
I'll tell you the perspective of the venture capitalists.
Hmm.
First thing is they want a quick exit. Second thing is, as you just mentioned, the endless negotiating ability and the greed on the other part. I mean, so all these factors they come in, and this will completely shake up ISRO. The reason why I say that is because ISRO has been going lackadaisical with its own funds, with its own resources. It never had to worry about commercial losses in that sense. And the new business mechanisms that the startups bring in, that will come as a very severe shock. And this is something that was the raison d'etre for resisting uh, heavy privatization of the space sector, because it needed a lot of mechanisms within the ISRO infrastructure and the ISRO organogram to really reboot themselves and work fine tuning to the needs of the commercial sector. Now there will be two entities who will directly push ISRO. One are the startups, and the second entity would be the financial sector, who's putting in money in these startups. So, like for instance, at this point of time, you have Series A funders and seed funders and angel funders who are pretty much okay with their small investments. But once big ticket money comes in the space industry, let's say once we have a OneWeb infrastructure in India through Airtel, if you have Starlink coming up and setting up their ground station, or Kongsberg Defense from Sweden coming here, that is when the entire Department of Space will start, getting the jitters to manage with the new business mechanisms. But this ought to happen. This is the time to make that happen, because if we miss the bus right now, in this 4 or 5 years, then we are gone for sure. Because you have countries like, and Pawan will agree with me that a country like Germany, which never had a launch vehicle program, it is now entering into commercial launch services. Then you have Scandinavian players. So if our companies and our startups need to have that great advantage in the global space economy, we'll have to begin now. And I guess COVID-19, although it has been detrimental to several domains and sectors, it has led to big churn, a good churn, a positive churn for high tech industries in India.
So before I go to Pawan, I think I want you to sort of expound on this a little more, right? Let's tell our viewers what is at stake for not acting now, right? We know that, I mean, at some level, there is this confidence that we are going to be one of the 4 countries who's we probably be the 4th country to land on the moon, have a soft landing on the moon. And that there is a sense of confidence and pride and all of those things. But that barely is scratching the surface, quite literally. And in that case, Chaitanya, slowing down on allowing private sector and that allowing that competition to streamline and make ISRO more efficient and competitive, care for delays, care for wastage, care for the cost of money, all of those things.
Yeah.
What is at stake if we don't do it right over the next 5 years? What will be the impact? Paint us a very Orwellian picture if you want to.
Look, in the past 10-15 years since PSLV became the workhorse, we had created a niche of the most by being the most cost-effective space player in the world. Sadly, if you look in the past 3 or 4 years since SpaceX came on the anvil, we've lost that niche because We don't utilize the same lean manufacturing, mantra. We don't have facilities that way. Our vendors are located all over the country. The supply chain is far and wide, and there are new players who are plugging themselves into the American space sector. So new players like Luxembourg, new players like Australia, New Zealand, the Scandinavians, the United Arab Emirates. They never were space players classically. They've suddenly come up. So there is democratization of outer space. And what they are doing is they are bringing in their Industry 4.0 competence into the space sector. Now, India never brandished or boasted of Industry 4.0 competence in space. We were only focusing on the bread and butter of the space sector, which was rockets and satellites. But there is more to it now. And if we don't comprehend this more to it, assortment, that will cost us dearly. And that's the reason why the reforms are very important. The startups are very important. The security of these startups is very important. Security as in not the conventional kind, but the economic security.
The fact that they are viable.
Yeah.
That they remain viable.
They remain viable.
Pawan, the way, and I'm going to ask a really dumb question here. The way Chaitanya explained, he said that a lot of non-space players, a lot of countries like Luxembourg, Scandinavia, people who are otherwise, sort of investing in high technology industry on ground, or art and crafts and painting and whatever. I mean, they were just doing all sorts of things, anything but outer space, are now entering this. Is there a, lack of space in outer space? I mean, is there only so much area that we can go to, or even after 5 years we can go? Is there enough space to put a satellite there?
Yeah. So there is enough space. Space is huge. So that's what people imagine. You're putting some 10,000 satellites in space. So what is going to happen? It will be all junk over there. But in fact, space is like we just look at the
It will look like those old Indian buildings with antennas.
Yeah. So in fact, space is pretty large. If you just draw circumference of even the 500-kilometer orbit, it's pretty huge. So there's ample space, and also like it's all recycling. The satellites which are close to Earth, they come back, burn up. New set of satellites going up, and new set of startups coming up to clean the space junk. So I mean, the future is safe. So in space, But having said that, there is like a chance of collisions, spoiling. Expanding, even so there is a chance where like the entire belt also can spoil, so that all we have to take it together as well. But of course, there are solutions to keep it, as big and as clean as possible, so that we keep going and coming back.
Yeah. Okay. So I think Chaitanya painted a picture of what has happened at the government level over the last 2-3 years. But how do you rate the progress of the private sector? I mean, why is the private sector more? Why are private players more vocal about wanting a skin in the game and be part of this? Be in the ring, so to speak. Why is it happening now? And what kind of progress have they made, say, last 5 years or so?
Yeah. So when it comes to private sectors, there are two aspects. One is like the vendor ecosystem of ISRO. The like L&Ts and HALs and all, like who build parts for ISRO, and the other part is the startups who build fresh technology from scratch, end-to-end design, develop, build products and take it to the market, right? So that vendor ecosystem has been there for the last 40-50 years, so that is that is improving on its own. But the major aspect here in this dynamics is the startups, right? Which is actually, and also this all started only in the last 5 years. Most of them have started in the last 5 years, and they're progressing, I should say, decently well. We're going global. Most of the companies are going global, pretty fast. And in that way, like we are doing good as of now. But like in the previous question you asked, in the next 5 years, if things go wrong, I think we are in a real bad situation. Because internationally, if you see the way SpaceX and these Blue Origin, the new space companies in the West, are taking it forward, taking full charge. The speed at which it is going. The only solution for India to keep up to the pace is public-private partnerships. There is no other method. So that is the only method, and that's what the government has taken that route. And so now it's up to the startups. Now we are, the venues opened up. It's for the government to see that startups are facilitated, and the startups to see that they keep innovating and match up to the global standards. Yeah.
So, Pawan, Chaitanya, I want to say this at BI, we don't, please don't put the pressure on the anchor, because at any point you want to ask, we like it to be a podcasty feel. We are very digital that way. So, don't wait for me to throw a question. Please, if you want to ask a question to Chaitanya or vice versa, please feel free to. I'm sure you do that in your own private space, but let's do it in front of us as well.
Yeah.
So don't wait for me to ask a question. If you do have a question for Chaitanya, Pawan, go ahead.
Definitely. But you're asking fantastic questions, so please go ahead with
No, I would rather prefer if this was a conversation, really. Like, let's assume.
Okay.
I will pretend to have tea.
Okay.
But you got a question.
Yeah. So, anyway, the discussion was on budget, right? So, let's see, I'm very curious, what Chaitanya thinks about the budget going to be in 2021.
Pawan, like I said, 2021 budget comes in the wake of the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
And I don't think the government would want to go beyond 10% raise from the previous year, unless it is well justified.
Yeah.
Secondly, I believe that the government is looking for a greater role for the private sector, and they don't want to look at you as vendors. That's why it is not fully appropriate for us to assume that space budget allocations for sustaining the private, they are for sustaining the private sector. Our budgeting must synchronize with the bullish economic growth, the space economic growth. Just for the information of the viewers, I would like to say that currently the global space economy is pegged at around $550 billion. And by 2040, we are expected to reach, so these are conservative numbers, but around $3 to $4 trillion. And $3 to $4 trillion is equivalent to India's economy at this point in time. So it's a huge sum. And if we really want to get a big pie out of this cake, it is our vendors, it is our startups who will have to work with each other. So that's why whenever I talk to startups, whenever I talk to the big players, the classical vendors, I always tell them that make sure that at some point of time you collaborate with each other. If there is any, if things go bad, and if startups are in dire need of infrastructure or an umbrella, please provide them the umbrella. And I always tell to the startups that if you find that the vendors are falling behind in terms of technology, and technology that they have been building over the years will become obsolete very soon.
Yeah.
So please provide them the necessary technology. So that means you are wanting to create synergies and symbiosis between the two. And this is the way to go. And apart from the public-private...
I think, can I just butt in here? I think, did I understand this right? You are saying that money will be difficult to come by from the government. It has other priorities. Therefore, private investors have to come in with the money. And the government will allow permissions, etc., which is the current framework that we are discussing in. So I want to tie up another question that I asked earlier about launch pads and the infrastructure, which you also alluded to. But I wanted a sort of a slightly simpler answer here. Who will build this new infrastructure? Should it be government? Can private players build on their own if they are able to get the money? And in that, what are the security and those kind of hedges that have to be put there? Should we fear something that private players might go berserk with?
There are three agencies, space agencies today in India: ISRO, InSpace, and the Defense Space Agency. Let's not discount that. And at some point of time, you will have all the three starting to build infrastructure, at least the testing and evaluation infrastructure for the proof of concepts and prototypes that come from the private companies. And I also believe that ISRO will also soon feel the need to collaborate with entities like CSIR and MIT and DRDO to share the cost that goes into building these, testing facilities. So many of the technologies that will arrive from these facilities that will come for testing, they won't be made for one singular application or purpose. They will have multiple applications. I don't want to use the word dual use, but they will have multiple applications. So, for instance, Skyroot, whenever it flies the next satellites, it won't pick and choose satellites that we will only do Earth observation for this application. They'll do it for the defense. They'll do it for the agriculture mapping. They'll do for companies like GeoKisan. They'll do it for OneWeb. They'll do it for let's say tomorrow Starlink as well. If we are able to
They basically create
get a good bargain with Elon Musk.
No, but I understand what can be done with private technology and how it can be distributed. But the question of building that infrastructure, that sunk cost that is there in create that huge cost that is there, and of course the proprietary, the need for the Indian government to still remain the gatekeeper for this outer space is not going away in a hurry, right? The government will say yes, you can go to outer space, but I will tell you whether you can go or not, who can go, when can they go, and how can they go, right?
Yes.
So that is not going to go away.
That's not going to go away because everywhere in the world, the government is becoming the gatekeeper. It doesn't want to innovate. It will give away most of the innovation to companies and academic institutions or corporate R&D labs, and it will only keep high risk, high reward projects to itself. And these projects, and it will only pursue these projects because it has the gumption, it has the financial gumption to carry out, to execute them. Let's say, for instance, in 2030, in early 2030s, we are planning for a space station, a modular space station. I mean, at this point in time, none of the Indian startups are capable of, or companies are capable of a space station. So it is the government that will take the lead, and you will have all the others following them and contributing components. So
Agreed.
the government will take that role,
Nice.
a gatekeeper with control on high risk, high reward projects.
Fantastic. So the big investment will come from the government, whereas the private players will provide the technology and
And commercial services.
commercial services.
Yeah, and also like one more point is that in fact, like private players are free to build their own facilities. For example, let's take Skyroot, right? So if we cannot keep utilizing government's launch pads for launching, because like they have their own program, right? So they have their own number of launches to meet, etc., etc. In that case, we are encouraged to build our own, launch pads on our case, So it's not like burdening the government because it's a commercial venture, So we are free, but of course they'll facilitate that by probably
I am
giving
told
land.
ISRO is still fighting some pending cases from Sriharikota from 30 years ago for land that it acquired 30 years ago.
So that happens, yeah.
Not over yet.
Yeah. And also, I think you may be knowing, so ISRO is acquiring land in Tuticorin for the launch pad for SSLV, right? Yeah, so that is going on, and budget has been last year also. Budget has been allocated, I think, around 120 crores, etc. So this year also, I think maybe some portion might be allocated for that. So this year budget, I mean, like it's very unclear because last year ISRO has asked for some X number, and it got only 55% of it. That means it got 45% less budget than what it asked for, and Gaganyaan.
So 35% less than 13,000 or 13,000?
No. 13,000 is 55% of what it asked for.
What it asked for.
Yeah, so it got 45% less than what it asked for. And, Gaganyaan was announced in 2018. It was announced to be a 10,000 crore project. And the allotment for last year was supposed to be 4,200 crores, what ISRO asked for. But what was given was 1,200 crores. So this was pre-COVID time I'm talking about. So pre-COVID time itself, there is a 3,000 crore cut in Gaganyaan, right?
But ISRO, it doesn't matter whether it happens in 2021 or 2024.
Yeah.
As long as it happens, right? I mean, that's the government pays. But for you guys who want to use ISRO's facilities, you don't have that luxury because there is a venture capital firm breathing down your neck. And you'll be like, okay, if there is so let's say, right now they have the capacity to do one launch a month, right? So if one project gets delayed, then there is a spillover for others as well, right? For you, that's loss of money,
Absolutely.
So how are you going to tackle that?
Yeah, so we need to have our independent infrastructure as well, in addition to the government infrastructure. Like for example, so it's not only the launch. There is a lot of testing which goes before the launch.
Hmm.
And those testing facilities, they are not 100% utilized at ISRO. So you'll always get a available slot for testing them. But when it comes to launch, it's always difficult to get it. So that is where you need to invest. A private company, wanting to do enough launches and making it commercially viable, they need to invest in building their own launch pad. So that is where, but ISRO has also shown interest to facilitate that, by giving land.
Time for trivia, Pavan.
Yeah.
Time for trivia. What is the cost of creating one launch pad?
Yeah, so it depends on the rocket design, So very highly sensitive to the rocket
So let's
design.
do a range now. Let's not. Did it not be a specific number? Just
Yeah.
like
No, but for small
for example,
rockets,
we have this much cost per unit of power, right?
yeah,
Or this
yeah,
much
yeah,
cost
yes.
per unit of speed.
So it will not be much actually. Cost of building a launch pad with relevant infrastructure might be around 30 crores, 30, 40 crores maximum. So that is we can do it well within also if you are lean. So that way, for small rockets. But if you want to build a launch pad for a GSLV or a GSLV Mark 3, that you cannot even imagine what the cost would be. So we are anyway the rockets which the private sector is building is more focused on the small satellite launchers. So the smaller rockets for launching smaller satellites. So even the launch pad infrastructure is smaller, which can be probably built by the private sector itself. Yeah.
Chaitanya, you want to chip in here? I'm sure you have more trivias than this. All the research that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually waiting for the Pawan's answer on that question. That how much does
I
it
could see
take?
the glint in your
How
eye.
much? Yeah, how much does he expect? So 30 to 40 crores is actually good because and there are precedent now. You have a rocket lab which has its own facility in New Zealand.
Yeah.
It doesn't depend. I mean, there wasn't any New Zealand launch facility earlier, but they now have it, which is entirely owned by them. And then SpaceX for a very long time has been using facilities of US Air Force as well as NASA. Now they have a separate facility for their very unique rocket called Starship, which is in Texas. Then the Swedes, the Germans, they're also building their own small launch pads, and which is a good thing because that gives them the leeway to launch at their own will and as per demand. Because on-demand rocket launches is something which is going to grow, and Skyroot, we must take into consideration that it won't be launching only Indian payloads and satellites. It will be launching satellites from all over the world, and they will have to cater to the demands of the launchers and the service providers because they will be sitting on their necks asking for an immediate launch and within a span of few days. So what will happen eventually is, let's say tomorrow, if Skyroot chooses somewhere a real estate on the eastern seaboard of India, you will have a lot of small satellite companies coming around them, around the location where they build the launch pad. For quick integration of satellites to the launch vehicle.
And then also, I'd like to correct here as well, so this 30 crores is assuming that we set it up in government land, that means like in Sriharikota or Tuticorin, so because they already have that radar ecosystem, the tracking system, the assembly facilities, etc. Right? If we actually acquire land and build it, it's a massive work, which we don't need actually today. Because
30 crores outside of land, and what is the land requirement? What, 10 acres?
Several, no, not 15 acres, so it will be thousands of acres, so not
thousands of acres.
minimum,
but that is including the margin, the land margin.
Of course, the minimum is, see, basically rockets comes under explosive laws, so if you want to put any sort of explosive, typical 400 acres is required, small amounts. When you put a rocket, you need thousands of acres and you need kilometers of safety.
The reason why I gave a very small number because I don't know A. B, I was saying that if you are saying that you're going to use a part of the government land itself, then I assume that it would be a smaller part, which is well.
Absolutely. See, in fact, Sriharikota is, I think, 55,000 acres, so it's a land dedicated for space launching. It was plenty of, space available. And even Tuticorin, I think they are acquiring 2,800 acres. Pretty large, so I don't think from Indian point of view, we need not worry about land, because the government is doing that job, and also it will set up infrastructure. Already Sriharikota has the infrastructure.
And by doing that, it will keep the gatekeeper tag because it will know what is happening there.
Absolutely. And also like it should, in my opinion, government should keep the gatekeeper tag because like it is a dual use technology, whatever the rockets launch civilian payloads, it's a dual use technology for sure, so it can be misused, it can be national security is concerned, right? So always in every country, nation, takes care of that responsibility and it should take care, but it should do a good job. That's where it's important, it should do a good job. It should give faster clearances, it should not create a lot of red tape for people. So that way it will keep that job, and that we should expect it to do it for national security purposes. Yeah.
So we spoke a lot about what we haven't done so far, but there is and the capabilities that are still getting built up. But one of the things that we as Indians and as a population are good at is data analytics and mining, and all the data scientists that we have,
Yeah.
and that is a big space and ancillary industry within the space community, right? I mean, I would like one of you, I don't know, Chaitanya, Pawan, whoever wants to take the lead, to explain to our viewers what are the challenges there right now. Yes, you might not be able to use ISRO's facilities at will, their permissions, etc. But there is also this complaint about data not being available as per request, as needed. Um, Let us first lay down what the problem is, right, in very simple terms. Whoever wants to take the lead, please go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, so when it comes to data, there are certain restrictions. Like for example, less than 1 meter, data is like again national security concern. It's not given, even though it can be given. It's not always. So the procedures are a little bit primitive. Whatever procedures we have are a little bit primitive, and what the data government shares, the procedures, etc., is a little bit primitive. And there are also restrictions on buying data. So if you actually want to buy data from a seller abroad who has his own satellites, who has his own images, it has to go, there is a way through the government in which you have to get for specific images, right? So this kind of restrictions are already, there. But again, the new policy wants to solve all these issues. You want to make it international standard. What happens in other countries, you want to go at par with them. So that is the whole purpose, and is doing that. And in fact, like from what we have seen, the remote sensing policy which has been released recently, that I think a lot of players are pretty happy. The remote sensing players are pretty happy with the policy. There are few things which need to be sorted out, but they are also will be sorted out soon. So that way, like this policy is going to solve all the issues.
Can you list out those few things, just a couple of them as examples, those
Uh,
concerns on the remote sensing part?
Yeah. So on the remote sensing part, so whether direct buying of images from resellers, so how easy would that be? Again, is a little bit of a question mark. So whether the government is going to put its hand in that also, and I think they are allowing up to 0.5 meters. So anything below that, again, there are good amount of restrictions, right? So that way, that is one point which I've seen, and other point is like. Lot of government, if you look at probably the policy, so even the government is taking a little bit more control than what the comfort which people would want to have. That is something which needs to be eased upon.
As in, government wants to look at 1 meter and below, but will not allow you to.
No, I think they're reducing it to much lesser than 1 meter. I think 0.5 meter or so. But below that, again, it's restricted.
Can you tell me something? I mean, I'm just asking, I'm just throwing it out there for both of you. Why are Indian startups going abroad to buy satellite images? When we are, is it because the government is not giving images, or is it because the quality of images from our satellites is not good enough?
Yeah, so one major reason is that the cadence at which you take images, that requires large number of satellites. For example, there's
Beep,
Planet
beep,
Lab.
beep, 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 jargon beep. What is cadence?
Pardon? Acha. Okay. So basically, the frequency at which Earth is imaged, so for example, let's say planet, they can take multiple images a day at a particular location today. That is because like they have a very large constellation, extremely large constellation, and a large number of satellites continuously clicking. But we don't have that concept of small satellite with large numbers is yet to start in ISRO. So that's where like constellation concept is still just in the primitive stages. So that's where very rapid high frequency images of the various places on Earth is still not yet available. Of course, you have to go to planet, you have to go to some places to get relevant images. And but quality wise, in fact, we are very good at high quality images. With fantastic sensors of our satellites, but the number of satellites is limited. So the frequency of imaging is limited. Yeah.
Chaitanya? What is the feedback that you get from the industry? What are the other data related issues?
I think there is there is quite some interest right now in the data related things. What I'm hearing is that big companies who conglomerates that have classically not been in the space industry, but they have been in the FMCG and in the agro space, they are wanting to get into the space sector by utilizing data, particularly those who are into agri, uh, because they are wanting to use precision agricultural techniques using satellites to increase their output or to maintain their the efficacy of their crops, because most of them have benefited from contractual farming, which is right now a hot topic in India. So
I'm scared to even ask who this person might be.
yeah. So that person, that very person, his company, and then there are a few other companies who are very much interested in agriculture,
Is this
and
a
they
rumor or
are.
is this something that you know? And I mean, if it is a rumor, then we'll stay away from naming it. Or
No,
is
it's not a rumor. It's a known fact in the industry. Just that the media is. I mean, the media has not covered it yet. I mean,
so?
it's a good
So this
story
is
to cover.
the Reliance Group.
The Reliance Group, the Godrej Group, they're quite interested in this vertical. I've had the
Adani as
chance.
well, because he also has a lot of interest in agriculture.
Yeah. But these companies will again they'll approach the overseas players because it's easier for them to get images. They'll get into contracts, or like for instance, Godrej, no, sorry, UPL, which is United Phosphorus.
Mhm.
They are collaborating with an Argentinian satellite company known as Satalogic,
Okay.
uh, and since UPL has great presence in Argentina. Uh, so they are using their international connects the same way that Airtel has used to purchase stakes in OneWeb, and this is where our companies are rapidly integrating into the global space economy. Like for instance, our startups are being approached by European incubators and venture capitalists, Australian venture capitalists that I know of, and uh, this is both a welcome sign, a good sign, but as well it raises an alarm that you have startups that are working in critical areas, critical technologies, and you really don't want them to be bought out by nefarious players. So we'll be fine. We'll be fine if they are bought out by friendly countries, but we'll have to be doubly careful that they are not taken over and they are not invested by nefarious players and states.
Interesting. So one thing that we didn't do in True BI Style, which is when we spoke a lot about what data and related challenges for companies who want to participate in the space sector, but in the as ancillary players using the information from space to provide other services. Can one of you just say, for the benefit of our viewers, what are these benefits? Where is this data used? Just a quick 30-second primer on what is the use of data from space.
Okay, so like I'll just give a couple of examples, So one thing is like you can actually predict, where fishes are, for fishermen. You can predict where, the fish shoals are good for fishing. I did identify the best locations for them, and you can always have an app with satellite data, with very high cadence data. You can always find the right spots and help them. One example. Then second example would be, so you can always for businesses, like for example, let's take insurance companies, right? So when the insurance companies, so for insurance companies, let's say they give home loan or something, so they see like up to second floor, up to third floor, what has been built, everything can be checked through satellite images. So that has been done in many countries, and even agriculture. In fact, in US, a lot of agriculture, professional agriculture, you can actually see the amount of pests through imaging, through satellite imaging. You can identify where the pests are, where it is not, and etc. And also, if some change is there in very large agriculture, let's say there are hundreds of acres of land, you can always monitor them from space. So these are some few examples from space-based applications. Yeah.
Chaitanya,
I'll add another example, which is of crop insurance,
Yeah.
which is very big in countries that face hailstorms. So particularly Canadian insurance companies have collaborated with satellite imagery suppliers to provide imagery for any person whose crop has been damaged. So there are various
is
applications
it used to provide insurance as in to prove that there is damage,
to
or
prove there is damage.
Yeah, to prove
but can
there is
we?
damage.
I'm assuming then we can use the same imagery to decide what the premium should be as well.
Exactly.
Of course.
So that will lead to a lot of new algorithms and new methods to quantify the extent of damage, and depending on the extent of damage, quantify the premium that the
Nice.
damages that you should give it to the insurer.
Interesting. So I'm on the last leg. I know we've gone a little more than what we had thought of, but this is the last leg of questions because we have a very young audience here at Business Insider, and there is nothing that the young audience wants more than intrigue, inspiration, and employment. So let's talk about what employment opportunities can the space sector throw up for us over the next year, and for that to happen, what needs to be done at the level of the budget.
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing is that when it comes to increasing of positions within the government, I'm not sure whether they're going to be a lot out there, but there will be good amount of employment generation because of opening up of the private sector, especially because in terms of startups. And previously, the growth of startups will be exponential because previously all the startups were formed at the time there was no policy. Now the policy has opened up. Now the risk has reduced. Now more investments will come in. So the number of startups are going to exponentially increase. But it may not. My guess is it will not be so significant in 2021. It will be in few hundreds. But high-tech jobs, very important for the country, very strategic for the country, very, very important jobs will be created this year in 2021. But over the next 3-4 years, I think it's going to be very extraordinary growth. Thousands of people will be employed in the private sector, high-tech jobs for the country. It will be a fantastic, so like how it was previously, only ISRO used to have this high-tech employment. Now it will be also part of the private sector, and then as a country we grow and accelerate. So it will be a fantastic time because of opening up this space sector, and it has been very well thought of and has come at the right time for us. It's like Chaitanya said, it's been in the bucket list for quite some time, but due to COVID, it has come out in the open, and now it's a great opportunity to create really good employment in the country.
So, what kind of jobs, Chaitanya?
I believe there will be an extension of the current trends. So if you see, most of our young engineers and scientists, they are into data analytics, into the information technology businesses. So I believe the extent IT companies will open up their space arms, the space domains within their long list of services that they provide. Then you will have a lot of imagery analysts coming up, and imagery analysis for various applications that we just spoke of. So that will be another
sounds
sector.
like something that's a job for the machine types.
The job for the machine type, because this will be the broad foundation of the pyramid. And as you raise and as you go up the pyramid, you will find people who are getting into R&D, who are manufacturing something. These are very specialized, highly skilled jobs. These will occupy the middle echelons of the pyramid, and on top of the echelons will be people who are ruling these companies.
So I think Pawan, you can say this, maybe comment on this, but I'm going to throw an idea out here that if it does come about, and like you said, maybe ISRO, there aren't enough positions in ISRO, but the moment startups start mushrooming and we need high-tech talented people, I mean, you're not going to hire someone, engineer, and say do imaging analysis or any other high-tech R&D. You are going to poach people from ISRO. and I say this with you, pointing fingers. So, and which means that there will be a exodus of people, talent from ISRO, and then of course that needs to be filled, and ISRO scientists can look forward to some nice private sector checks.
Yeah, so I'll answer this. This is in fact opposite of what you're thinking. I'll tell you why.
Oh,
Yeah. So there is very little exodus from ISRO. So ISRO is like one of the most comfortable, decently good paying jobs, in the country right now. So very few people, quit the jobs and join startups. So we had, in fact, we found that problem, and so what we do is that we take the best from the outside and train them as quickly as possible. Typically, some people with related, aerospace experience in, not the space field, maybe from defense or, from aircraft industry, etc., etc. We train them to space very quickly, and then like we induct them, and and we can do it at much lower costs. So ISRO is pretty costly. So yeah. So that way, like we are building great economic manpower, training them. And for us, it's survival. So startup has to survive. We have to train people. We have to have large number of people joining the sector. So that way, like exodus is very, very less. Even today, with so many startups already existing in India, the amount of people, ISRO people working in the startups, extremely low, very, very low, hardly any. So very few. Yeah. So the exodus is very less.
It's not how it plays out in other industries.
No.
Typically, if even in banks, where it's equally comfortable.
See, basically, startups are very volatile. So we don't know what will happen next 2 years, what will happen next 3 years. ISRO is like a settled job.
Stability
forever,
is a major factor there.
Stability, and Indians' mindset, so like entrepreneurial mindset is just building up right now. The startup India has come. Now like there's a lot of respect for startups coming up, but it's very, very. It's still some time where people from the government will quit their jobs and taking up jobs in the private sector. But still, as of now, it's
not enough money. A lot of people will come. I'm sure.
Yeah. So now even startups are underfunded. So paying huge salaries also becomes difficult in the initial phases. But like you said, with time that is going to happen. Yeah.
Thanks. I think we are ready to wrap. Did I miss any important question related to the space budget that you would like to address?
I think you have covered.
You've covered much of the ground. Yeah.
Okay, I will take that as a compliment, and I will say thank you on behalf of Business Insider and our viewers. And I hope people found this enriching. I know there are lots of snippets from this conversation that are standalone. I mean, they don't need to sit as part of the whole conversation. Chaitanya gave us some great insights, some great information, source-based information, which media hasn't reported. So, including us, we are guilty as charged, Chaitanya. We will go and find out. And Pawan, thank you for explaining us the internal mechanics of how this industry works as someone who has a skin in the game. And we look forward to taking this conversation forward on the budget day. And I hope both of you gentlemen will be able to take a few minutes out right after the speech, come and tell us whether your hopes and aspirations have been addressed. And of course, we will keep continuing talking about the outer space because our audience loves it, and therefore we do too. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching Business Insider. This is Sriram Iyer signing off.